What happens when us men are unable to express our emotions? How does that manifest and what can we do to fix it? It's Ryan from the Center for Healing here. This video is for all you men out there who have issues with expressing yourself and your emotions, or for any women out there who live with a man like this and need some understanding about why we are the way that we are. When I say men, I'm talking about more the masculine energy. So we all have feminine and masculine energy as part of ourselves. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about here does show up in females, but it's predominantly a male thing. It's a very masculine kind of trait. So what happens? Here's some emotions that as all human beings, even us men, feel. Sadness, guilt, fear, shame, hurt. We all feel this stuff. For any man out there who might be like, I don't feel that stuff, or any woman's like, nah, my guy doesn't feel any of that stuff. Bullshit. I call bullshit. 100% all of us feel this stuff at some stage throughout our lives, generally quite often. Now what happens when we as men start to shut down expressing these things, and that can happen for a variety of reasons. That can happen because we had a trauma when we were a child and we didn't feel safe to express ourselves from that day forward. It can be because we never saw that, our dad or our grandpa, we never saw anyone growing up express themselves, so we decided that's not what men do. Very prevalent in this culture. However, it starts once we start not expressing these emotions to ourselves, our loved ones, or anyone else, we start to accumulate. We accumulate, okay? We get heavier and heavier and things get harder and harder. What happens then? This is how it manifests. It manifests mainly in two areas. As we get a build-up and a build-up of these emotions, it has to come out somewhere. If there's a build-up of something, it has to find some sort of outlet and come out. So how does that manifest for us men? What's the outlet? Anger. Why anger? Well, we revert back to anger from these emotions because anger is the one that we understand the best. We've seen anger, we've experienced anger and been able to recognize it for what it is. We get anger. We know how to do anger, so that's our go-to when we can't express all this other stuff. Okay? What are we angry at? Well, everything. We might make an excuse and say, well, I'm angry at something that happened at work, or I'm angry because this friend did this to me, or whatever it is. That's all an excuse. What we're actually angry at is everyone and everything, most of all ourselves. We're frustrated. We're frustrated because we've had years of being unable to actually express what's really going on inside of our heart and our body. No wonder we're angry, okay? How else this manifests, when we accumulate a lot of this stuff over months and months and years and years and years, along with these comes what? These dots represent thoughts, mainly self-defeating and negative thoughts, okay? The more we hold on to this stuff and don't express ourselves, the more negative thoughts and limiting thoughts we have going on in here. Whereas we get to a point and it feels like we have, God, 35,500 different negative thoughts all ricocheting off the inside of our skull, which isn't much fun. What does this look like? If we're not in the angry state, we're in this state. And how does this state show up? Have you ever been in the room with someone, right? You're physically in the room with someone, maybe a loved one, a partner, whoever it is, and they're physically there, but you know mentally and emotionally they're somewhere else. Where are they? They're stuck up here, okay? That shows up in someone that looks very apathetic, they're not motivated, they're not present, okay? All presence is gone, okay? Which means the connections in our life start to break down, okay? So as men, we end up in one of these two states. We're angry or we're stuck in our head. Yeah, angry or stuck in our head, yeah? It sucks, it's no fun. The relationships and connections in our life start to break down because of this, okay? So why don't we just start expressing this stuff? Why as men don't we just start expressing these emotions that we have going on in our heart and in our body, because that will be able to help us, okay? Well, it's hard. If we haven't done this stuff since we were 4, 5, 6, 7 years old and we've shut it down ever since then, or maybe just shut it down altogether before then it's hard to start doing something that we haven't done in so long, okay? That's one reason. The actual number one reason, the most prevalent reason why, is because we are scared. We are scared shitless. What are we scared of? If I start to express any of this stuff, the stuff that I have going on in my heart, what does that make me? Vulnerable. I just broke my texter, that's how excited I was. If I start to express this stuff, I become vulnerable. As men, there is no word that invokes more fear into our hearts than the word vulnerable. Because vulnerable we equate with a negative thing, we equate it with being weak and as being just not good. Negative and weak, okay? We hate being vulnerable, okay? Because we have such a negative connotation of this and we're so scared shitless of being vulnerable, we don't express any of this stuff. We don't go deeper and go into letting the people in our lives know what we're actually feeling, okay? So we're stuck in this cycle now of not being vulnerable, of being fucking angry all the time, or stuck in our head all the time and going batshit crazy, okay? How can we make a shift? How can we start expressing all this stuff, okay? Let's change the conversation around the word vulnerable, okay? Let's make vulnerable a good thing, a positive thing, a strong thing, okay? That's easy, those are just words. We can't just snap our fingers and make that happen. We've got to change the meaning of the word vulnerable as men in our mind, okay? What happens when we start to be vulnerable? A few things happen. We get uncomfortable. We get very uncomfortable because all that fear starts to come to the surface, okay? Once we start to express ourselves, our great fear of being judged as weak, when we express ourselves to the people in our lives who actually love us, we will not get judged. We will get respected and loved more than ever. That's why being vulnerable gets easier every time that we do it. Because every time we do it, we build a new belief into our wiring, into our neurological pathways that says, oh, the people that love me aren't judging me and are loving and respecting me more than ever. This vulnerability thing, it mustn't be all bad. Once we start expressing this stuff, guess what happens? We can start to lighten the load. We can start to get a lot of this stuff out. If we start to lighten the load of all this stuff, the load gets lightened here and here. So the more we start to lighten that load and open up and be vulnerable and start to make it second nature to talk about what's really bloody going on in here, anger starts to get lighter, starts to dissipate. We can stop being so goddamn angry all the time, okay? We don't choose as men to be angry all the time at everyone and everything. This goes on unconsciously and we don't address it. And we wake up one day when we're 30, 35, 40, 45, however old it is, we wake up one day and either us or our loved ones go, Jesus Christ, when did you become such a grumpy bastard? It seems like it happens overnight because it's such an accumulation of unaddressed shit that happens throughout our life, okay? When we address this stuff with the people we love, the anger can start to disappear, okay? Great. Also, those 35,500 thoughts that ricochet in the inside of our cranium causing us to go batshit crazy and not be present for the people in our life, the people that we truly love, those will start to disappear as well. Does that mean we never fear anger or have these self-defeating thoughts anymore? No, they still come, but there's so much less load that we can bat them off or swat them away as soon as they come up and acknowledge them for what they are, okay? We are not going to get stuck in this state for weeks, months, and years. Once we lighten this load and we become more present with ourselves and the people that we love, our connections and our love get stronger. Connection is what life is all about. Connection gives us meaning in life. Connection gives us fulfillment. It gives us happiness. Connection and love will strengthen. Why? Because we express this stuff. Why? Because we got vulnerable and we realized that vulnerability was in fact a massive strength and not a weakness. So men, I implore you, let's get vulnerable. Let's stop being so goddamn angry all the time and get out of our head and into our life.